So you're a connoisseur of intellectual property.
Yeah.
What are the key things that you're looking for when you're trying to figure out whether a new IP or you're creating your own? What are the exact things you're looking for to last for the long term?
I think similar to what you're seeing with Caitlin Clark right now, and Reese and all that, I think you need superheroes. Okay. Now that superhero may look like Superman or Spider-Man, but it may also look like Bart Simpson. It may also look like Fred Flintstone. Got it? You need that character that captures everyone's imagination. And so Doug from Nickelodeon, like Woody and Buzz Lightyear are superheroes.
Sure.
And so is Steph Curry, and so is Mickey Mantle.
Yep.
And so I believe you need to have a superstar to carry the IP, and I think about that a lot.
And when you're thinking about collecting a new category, how much are you thinking about that intellectual property existing, or is that not required for you to dive into a new collectible category?
Meaning existing today?
Existing today.
Right, so like Casper the Friendly Ghost, I'm into it. It might not be the most top of mind, or Gumby. You know, sometimes you're projecting and speculating. So to me, like Gumby.
Okay.
Could Gumby just get hot again in 10 years because someone who owns the intellectual property makes an animated, Deadpool's first appearance in comics meant nothing until the last 20 years, 15
That's right.
years.
I mean, just look at Marvel.
Correct.
I mean, the movies have just taken it to a whole
Black
nother
Panther
level.
was dormant.
Yeah, they started with the nobody characters. Like Iron Man was nothing either.
My point of view is if something was once big, it can be big again. And so it depends on how you want to speculate and collect.
Fair enough.
I'm in the point of my career where I can afford to go buy a 1940s Superman or a 66 Donruss Spider-Man. But if you're young, if I'm 20-year-old me and I believe in the fictional thesis and I want to do it with cards, you're going to have to go and buy things for $3, $4, $5 that nobody's figured out are going to get hot again.
Mm-hmm. How does that differ from when you're investing in startups, maybe putting out an angel check? Are there any similarities between new collectibles categories and new startups? Are you betting on the intellectual property of that thing? It's totally separate?
That more is the jockey. When I bet on startups, it's more like somebody betting on VeeFriends.
Okay.
You're betting on the jockey can get it done.
And can they execute against what they're creating, which in VeeFriends' case is intellectual property?
Correct. That's right.
Got
so to
it.
me, like when I looked at MetaZoo, when I look at Lorcana, which is Disney, when I look at all the things that will pop up, I do believe that VeeFriends will succeed. And I do believe over the next 5 to 7 years, as that becomes more obvious, there'll be other people like, fuck Gary Vee, I can do it too.
Yeah.
And then when I look, I'm gonna give you some flowers. If I see you in 8 years, you're like, bro, fuck man, you inspire me. I'm doing like my own kind of like horror IP, like Nightmare, like Elm Street, and I'm gonna fucking do it. To me, I would look at that and say, I think he could do it.
Thank you.
And then I would bet and collect. That's startups for me. Mm-hmm. On the human that's behind the wheel. That would be a new intellectual property. For me, what I really look at is old intellectual property. Do I think it could be bigger than it already is? Or get refurbished? Like, could Scooby-Doo have the biggest movie of the year next year?
Sure.
And what does that mean?
So we talked about this a little bit when we did that Mantle episode, but how I think about a category like SpongeBob, which I've been huge into for the last couple of years, is the demographic that grew up watching is still a handful, 5, 10, 15 years away from being adults and having kids to reintroduce that to on their own. Are there any sort of like
I believe in that a lot.
math equations that you think about? Or what are the other things
that's how Hasbro and Mattel reboot franchises.
And that's how all Disney art historically has hit records. It's that exact point.
And not only does that person that was crazy SpongeBob pass on, but she or he is also in a place where their paper is usually better.
That's right.
And so I'm a fan of that.
What are the other things sort of like that you think about in terms of pinpointing when things are going to reach their peaks?
Refurbishing IP in new formats. A video game becoming a movie. A movie becoming an iPhone app. Mm-hmm. An iPhone app becoming a console game.
Sure.
A console game becoming trading cards. Fortnite cards. Mm-hmm. I knew it. I'm so pissed to see how well they've done. They
caught that pretty early.
I fucked that up. Like the amount of money a Series 1 box goes for now.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've seen. Even some of the top cards too.
I was right about that one. I'm pissed at myself. I just dragged my feet. They were nothing at first.
When you think about the intellectual property that's done the absolute best, Pokemon, right?
Yes.
Number one gross sales all time.
Yes.
What did they do so much better than the number 468?
They did video games in the 90s when people didn't understand the value of that.
So that was what is now nostalgia for back then.
It was also they did two things well. They did video games when people didn't understand how big the medium was, and they did TCG when people didn't understand. Like, they caught both mediums properly.
They got it perfect.
And then they did cartoons, and I mean, they did everything right. The characters were cool. They did everything right.
The shows, the movies.
They did everything fucking right.
Now, how much do you study those brands and try to pull things for what is now VeeFriends?
I would say I study all of them wide. I go deep sometimes. It's funny, I'm very inspired by Pokemon. The VeeFriends competing with each other is competition, so in my blood.
Sure.
Hence the black eye. But then also Sesame Street's in my blood. Jim Henson, like, there's a lot of positivity to this. The Gary Vee of it all extends. So I study Jim Henson and Sesame Street's Pokemon more than maybe other things.
Do you think there's a point where the brand or the IP starts to fall, and why do you think those do start to fall?
Less relevance, less attention. They get outdated, or it's not on TV anymore. There's no video games coming out anymore. It's about attention. It's all about attention. There is nothing else.
And the next 30 years of new IP and brands, do you think that mostly comes from individual influencers, creators? Where do you think it sort of comes from?
I mean, that was always the case. I mean, there was a human that created all these things, right? Stan Lee, like, somebody,
was a creator.
Yeah,
just a different form.
Drew Batman. He's like, I'm going to draw Batman. Different. Now we have our own distribution.
Yeah.
Distribution.
And now a 13-year-old from Arkansas can do it.
Because they have distribution.
Sure.
The creator was always the guy. The distribution is what changed.
It's going to be interesting to watch how that develops.
I think that's right.
What are you most excited about now with VeeFriends?
Honestly, that I'm in kind of like the grind of it. That I'm like in meetings for next year's this and thinking about ornaments for Christmas and what are we doing in 2025 trading card. Like, I'm in the muckery, not in the hype, not in the speculation. I'm just in it. The kids book just came out.
I saw that. Congrats.
I have cartoons coming out on YouTube Kids in the fall. That's huge.
It's exciting. YouTube Kids is huge.
I'm focused on it. The grind.
What are some things you would tell yourself 3 or 4 years ago about building an IP or VeeFriends that you've since learned?
I do think that we took social media creative for granted because Andy and I and May, like, we came from it. And we've been so distracted with VCon and everything else that I think I would tell myself, don't take social media for granted. I think we're behind on that.
What does behind on that mean? Not just putting out enough content?
Yeah, that is doing well.
Got it.
We're behind on that, which is stunning and ridiculous. But I'm empathetic. We're incredibly stretched in right now. I think we've also misplayed some of the secondary events. We've done other trade shows and things of that nature that we're probably, so I would have said stick to the top stuff, the National Comic Con. No matter how good you are, no matter how many reps you have, no matter how gray hairs you pick up, and you'll pick them up one day, it's still fun to be kind of humbled by the results. So, I like the micro losses as long as they're not a macro loss.
I respect that. I want to talk